Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I'm the Young Adult Librarian at the Rock Island Public Library, and today the book I'm going to tell you about is called I Am Princess X. So in this book you meet two girls at the start, and their names are May and Libby. And May, I think this starts in the 5th grade. She has just moved to a new school where she meets Libby, and Libby loves to draw. And May likes to write stories. So they create this comic about a character called Princess X. And she's a princess with a katana, and she lives in a haunted house, and she fights, various ghosts and ghouls. And it's just a fun story, it's something they do for fun. And they're best friends for several years. But then one night, I think it's in the 8th grade, Libby and her mom are coming home, and it's a rainy night. They live in Seattle. And what unfortunately happens is their car somehow goes off the road and they crash. They go over a bridge into the river, and the car is just, carried away. They aren't able to get out in time before it sinks. So they find Libby's mom pretty quickly, but it takes 5 days before they find Libby's body. And what this means for May, not only is her best friend dead, what happens is they have a funeral, and it has to be a closed casket funeral, because if a body, spends 5 days in water, it's not going to look like the person did before when they were alive. It's going to be quite badly decayed, unfortunately. So years pass, and what happens is May's parents get divorced, and so she spends most of the year with her mom in Atlanta. She goes to school there. But then during the summer, she comes back to Seattle to stay with her dad. And one summer, she's back, and she's just kind of walking around, looking for something to do. And she sees this sticker, stuck to an old building. It's about to be torn down. There's just a sticker on the glass. And she thinks, all right, that's weird. Because this looks like Princess X. I mean, obviously, the art is different than when Libby was in 5th grade, but it's their character, and this just reminds May of this thing they made years ago when they were kids. And she knows that wherever the Princess X stuff was, it's gone, it was given away to Goodwill or something. And she thinks, all right, well, this is a princess with sneakers and a katana. Somebody else could have come up with the same idea, but it is weird that this character is also called Princess X. That's kind of a funny coincidence. And as May walks around Seattle, she notices, more of these stickers, stuck onto buildings, and, lampposts, in windows. And finally she's in the park, and she's walking, and she sees somebody with a patch on their bag of Princess X. And May's she goes up to this person and says, hey, where'd you get that? And the person says, oh, I got it online, there's the website for the comic. And May's like, what comic? And right away she gets on her phone and looks up, Princess X. And upon going to this website, there are these character portraits. There's the princess. And this is the villain, the Needle Man. And there's all this other stuff, there's all these illustrations, and this comic is pretty elaborate. It's a webcomic that's apparently been around for a bit, it's ongoing. And as May starts to read, she is alarmed to discover that a lot of this, it seems to be very similar to what happened to Libby. This page in particular, it starts with the princess and her mom. This guy comes after them with a gun, and they're able to drive away, but then the guy runs them off the road. And then the car goes into the water, and what happens is Libby is pulled out. So that's strange. So May is reading this and thinking, wait, could this be what really happened to Libby? Could she have survived the car crash? But then whose body did the police find? So as she continues reading, May discovers that, okay, this kidnapper, he had a daughter, and this daughter died. And so in his mind, he basically kidnaps Libby as a sort of replacement. And eventually, the princess, aka Libby, is able to get away. And in the comic, like, the ghost of her mom is helping her and trying to, like, lead the way to whatever she needs to find, including these 4 keys, which May doesn't quite understand at first, but eventually, like, these are the keys that lead to Libby. Like, May's gonna need to find the real life equivalents to get to her friend, like, to find out where she is now. And, I mean, May's reading all this, and her dad comes home that night, and he's like, hey, how was your day? And May's like, well, I've had kind of a weird day, actually. I've been reading this webcomic, and it reminds me a lot of Libby. Like, I know we don't really, like, talk about her, because, I was super sad when she died, and I was just wondering, have you heard from her dad lately? Like, do you know how he's doing? And so May's dad says, okay, we know you were really devastated when Libby died. She was your best friend, and we didn't want to freak you out, but actually, like, what happened with the car crash is somebody actually shot Libby's mom. Like, that's why the car, it didn't just run off the road for no reason. Like, this person was shooting at them. And, I mean, she was shot and killed, and, this is why the car accident happened, is what they think. And as for Libby's dad, no, I haven't talked to him because he was actually killed not too long after Libby and her mom died. So this is startling news for May. She's like, what? Why did you never tell me any of this? And her dad's like, well, I mean, you were like 13, you were a kid. We didn't want to scare you, but basically, like, with Libby's dad, it was really weird because he just kind of left suddenly. Like, he didn't tell anybody where he was going. He just took off, and they found his body, like, so nobody ever figured out what happened there. But, I mean, since May's been reading this comic, she has a pretty good idea. Like, as she reads on, she discovers that in the story of Princess X, the princess, like, tries to go to the equivalent of the police, and, I mean, they don't believe her. Like, they think, oh, they've already gotten a report from this person pretending to be her dad who says, oh, my daughter, she's having these delusions. She thinks I kidnapped her, and I just want her to come home safe. If you find her, please let me know. So the police are already convinced that Libby is not she's not who she says she is. She's not telling the truth. And, this guy is claiming to be her father, and, he has documentation that he has a kid, so they have no reason to doubt him. So this is why Libby, after escaping from her kidnapper, she's been hiding ever since. Because, the first thing she did when she got away, she went up to somebody and said, hey, can I borrow your phone? So she borrowed a phone, and she called her dad and said, Dad, I'm still alive. I was kidnapped. Please come get me. So her dad tried to do that, but the kidnapper caught up with him first. And, I mean, he was able to get there before Libby's dad could even, get on his way to. So by this time, I mean, May is pretty convinced that Libby is alive, and she's just hiding because, the last time she tried to contact somebody who knew who she really was, they were murdered by the kidnapper. And this is the Needleman in the story. And so May decides, well, I have to find Libby. I need to, like, find these 4 keys. Like, they're hidden somewhere in Seattle. And her neighbor helps her out. Like, he goes, like, his handle is Trick. Like, he does lots of different, he's having some problems with a scholarship for school, and also he's been doing some sort of illegal things computer-wise, and so, he says, okay, I'll help you with this, because I'm pretty good at, like, tracking down IP addresses. Like, I can maybe trace where Libby has been posting comics from, but, I mean, that's not really, like, a good lead, because she's been doing it from, like, cafes and things, like public internet. It's not like a dedicated Wi-Fi spot. So May and Trick start looking for Libby. But as they get closer, what happens at one point in the book is this SUV tries to like run them down. And they don't get like a super clear look at the guy, but he definitely looks like the character in the comic. And at this point, May realizes, okay, so this is definitely all real. Like, there is a kidnapper who's trying to get Libby back, and he's willing to like murder us and anybody really to like cover this up. So May has to try and find Libby and not get murdered in the process. And of course, she doesn't want her dad to get hurt. She doesn't want her neighbor and new friend Trick to like also die. So she's thinking, all right, like we need to get to Libby fast, and we need to, you know, like if my dad can see her too, like if there's enough people that can vouch for who she really is, you know, we can finally like stop this kidnapper. Like we could have him arrested. But I mean, they have to not die in the meantime. So a lot of this book, it goes back and forth between like, you know, the story that May is telling, you know, it's her perspective of finding all this out, and then the comic that Libby has been drawing to kind of try and send a message. And May is the only person who can like understand the real meaning of this, because like the stuff in the comic, it's like references to things they did as friends and like places they went. And so, I mean, that's the thing. When people read it online, they think, oh, that's a cool story, you know, that's with the keys, oh, that's a neat mystery. But like, there are real life places that May can go to start to find out where Libby is hiding. So if you like graphic novels, it's a really fun book because it's like a mix of a prose novel and a graphic novel. And this book is available, I believe, through Libby. Might be Access 360 now too, because they've added a lot of titles. But yeah, check it out. And thank you for watching. I will see you again soon.